Namaste. How's it going out there? Still working on the city. I think I've turned a corner and I'm going to start building it up instead of knocking it down. See how long I can push this Omega Core without bankrupting. Lost a lot of money in the process so far, but we're actually in the green now, which is interesting. And the spiritual talk kind of goes into a couple things. Mainly, I'm trying to set the groundwork for a second level of understanding. So I kind of go into first level and second level, just stuff I'm making up, trying to express some spiritual understanding. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Oh, also, I talk about the beginning of my spiritual journey, which started with DMT, and then the ending, which ended with with Ram Dass, basically. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm gonna put another one out shortly to expound upon this talk. So stay tuned for that as well. And without further ado, have a great rest of your day. Hello again. Welcome. I hope everything is going well. Ah, let's take a moment, wherever you are, to settle, get comfortable. And let's take 3 deep breaths, nice inhales, in and out. And start focusing a little bit of that attention, if not all, to that subtle rising and falling right at the center of your chest. As you listen to my voice, just let the words pass through, become completely dissolved into that rising and falling. It's a subtle rising, it's a subtle movement. The tip of every rise and every fall, just pay attention to that tip of the exhale, the tip of the inhale. You may notice other sensations which may arise and fall. Maybe some thoughts come in. Just notice and go back to the chest. The rising and the falling is all part of the body. And so notice your body rising and falling. Notice any feelings that the body may have. Sometimes the feelings may become overwhelming, and you start thinking about what to do. Instead of turning to the thoughts and the actions, place the attention on the sensations. And as we notice the rising and the falling of our chest, we can notice the rise and the fall of our sensations. Those feelings are there, and the thoughts about the feelings are just chirping in an empty sky. The essence of your body is in an empty sky. Well, that was nice. Sometimes meditation doesn't always feel so nice to me. There's a lot of things that can arise in that empty space. I like the instruction of just getting comfortable, because sometimes I can sit for, maybe 45 minutes or something, and during that time, my legs start to fall asleep, or there begins some sharp pains, which is all part of the process. Sometimes those pains can distract from the practice or completely end the practice. When pain ends the practice, it's because the mind's attachment to our feelings is so strong that we allow that feedback to make us act. If I start feeling tingly or numbness in my legs, I think, I should reposition. And I focus deeper into the sensations, and the thoughts start yelling change your position and start begging, screaming, and changing into forms of fire and urgency. And right behind all that crazy mind chatter, the thought that nothing is wrong here, this too will pass, holds everything together. And as I sink deeper into the feelings and the sensations, they become more alive and intense. Although the deeper you focus in on those intense feelings, the further away the chatter gets. And then the feelings start to diminish, start to go away. And then other chatter comes in. Could be about boredom, about my to-do list, what time is it? And then go back into the rising and the falling. And that chatter goes further and further away. But when we have that opportunity to experience intense sensations while we are sitting and meditating, we can use that as a tool, an opportunity. We can see it as an opportunity to go deeper into the practice. Because we know that we're not going to die by sitting for an hour. No one's ever died by sitting. No one's ever broken a leg or sprained an ankle or had a stroke just by sitting. So that rational understanding can help keep us grounded through practice. And that practice is really forming some alternate state, some altered state. And through altered states, we start to learn about how this ego identity has been operating, is operating, how it reacts without being the operator, the reactor. You can just see it be and do what it's doing. And what is that goes behind or beyond the operator and the reactor, that notices the ego or the identity, whatever story you have of what's going on right now? What's behind the story that can observe the subjective experience? That, because it's not definable and can only be experienced, is an important thing to return to so that we can use our egos or our stories in order to embrace and hold and squeeze all of the love out of every moment that's given to us. The stories that we have are really, those are our opportunities. The ego is the moments in meditation where you have an intense situation and you're flowing through that. So how are you going to flow through that? How are you flowing through it? And we have some idea based on our level of success, money, family, friends, well-beingness, how happy we are. We have these little markers to show us how we're flowing through, but it doesn't hit the nail on the head completely until we incorporate that with an altered state. And once you hit the altered state, you can start witnessing a little bit more clear how we are flowing. So the whole concept behind enlightenment is being able to take in the sensations, notice where you're at, where you're oriented to. Where am I in this time and space, in this whole universe? Where am I? All right, great. Now there's a pull to act, and you're acting. And when you become enlightened, you are acting through the story while also being able to witness yourself acting, which is the feelings and the thoughts and the processes. And just keeping that door open for yourself. Keeping the door open to a second level of understanding. Man, oh man, it's really hard to describe this stuff. And I don't know who exactly I'm talking to. I think that there needs to be a level of understanding almost. You have to build up a story and an ego to find yourself. And then once you find yourself, you can use the life to reflect a higher self, a second level. But that second level is so difficult to communicate unless there's people you can communicate with that know what you're talking about. Like, what I could say now, it could possibly awaken somebody into full enlightenment.
But I would venture a guess that the vast majority of people who listen to this have no idea what I'm talking about. I mean, I was there. When I first started my spiritual journey, which began just basically taking 2 hits of DMT. I It was so interesting because I was listening. I'd never heard of Terrence McKenna before, but my friend played like a 7-minute clip or something on YouTube before he dosed me up. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I don't remember much of what it was about other than like some elves and stuff. And he said like you have to take 3 hits. And so I took 1 hit. I'm like, all right, I held it in. All right, let's go for 2. I don't feel anything yet. And in the middle of the second inhalation, I lost the sensation of breathing. Like there was just no more breathing. There was no more rising and falling. There was nothing going below the tip of my nose. That there, like I was inhaling and then the movie stopped. It was like the end of Sopranos. Like there's just nothing going on there. And I'm like, oh, that's a strange thing. So I'm like, well, if I'm not breathing, if I lost that ability, maybe I'll lose the ability to hold this apparatus I'm smoking out of. And so I handed it back to my friend. And just not too much more moments later, with my eyes open, whatever was outside, whatever I was looking at, which was basically outside of the inside of a car, just looking out, that all went away. There was no more body, car, earth, friend. There's none of that. But there was something. There was an intense something. There was, like, all I can describe. I mean, the best description of what happened is if you just Google fractal zoom on YouTube and you speed that up to as fast as you can, and then you put VR goggles on and you watch that, that's basically what it was like. It was like the most complex geometrical patterns that were constantly changing and actually coming at me. Like if you're standing in the middle of a highway and cars are coming at you, is like these patterns are coming at me, all different colors. And that was a little jarring. It was also pretty jarring that I didn't have a body and that the world went away. And so I figured I was dead. I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm dead now. And these geometrical patterns are like super bizarre. I don't know what this is, but I can't do anything about it. And then after a few moments, I remembered that I had my eyes open. And so I thought, well, maybe if I can close my eyes, the patterns will slow down or stop. And I closed my eyes and nothing changed. So I'm like, all right, I'm definitely dead. And, as this drug does, it basically diminished After a couple minutes, I started tripping out. It was like a mushroom trip. Pretty intense, but things were back. My friend was there in my body, the car, my pants were moving. And then after a few seconds of that, I was just stone cold sober. I was super sober. And like after you get hit with a train like that, you don't really know what to do. I mean, you could basically just laugh or cry. So I just started laughing. I was like, what the hell was that? You know? And I was, days passed. I was talking to some friends about that, about my experience. And, I was, after I told the story, I was like, I want to go back in there. I want to do that again. And my friend just asked me, why do I want to do that again? And I said, because, I thought about that. I'm like, I didn't really think about that before. And then I just said, because I want to find the meaning to life. I don't know why I thought I could find the meaning of life there. And one of my friends, when I was telling the story, was like, dude, that's not, have you ever heard of fractals? I'm like, no. He's like, you should check out fractals. And he showed me a fractal zoom, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what I experienced. So I'm like, well, there's something interesting here. And then I saw this Arthur C. Clarke documentary about fractals, and I was just blown away. I'm like, this is it. There is meaning in here. That is interesting. So that got my attention. I was like, well, this is interesting, like that you can basically take a drug like, Limitless or Lucy, those movies, and start gaining realizations, information, knowledge, all that kind of stuff, meaning. I'm like, holy shit, there's like some cheat codes going on right now. And that's what kind of put me on I guess what people call spiritual path. I started listening to Alan Watts, other philosophers, lots of Terence McKenna, Eckhart Tolle. And through Eckhart Tolle, I heard him talk to Ram Dass. And I was like, man, Ram Dass, like I heard of this guy. He was like some dude in the 60s. But like I wasn't very impressed. I'm like, dude, you talk so slow. Like, is that just some wise like ego thing going on? But it's like, no, dude, he had a stroke. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, well, maybe I should hear what the hype is about for Ram Dass. So I like turned on a thing on YouTube, like a talk, and I'm like, no, just a little bit too, he sounded like arrogant or something to me. Just a little bit too know-it-all-y. And so I kind of just shut that part down for a while. And went through other people, like Jordan Peterson's, I mean, all sorts of different philosophy. In years past, maybe 6-7 years or something, I'm just doing my thing, working, living life. And then one day, I'm doing yoga. I had, I took maybe, just a small microdose. I was microdosing for, during a little period of time, doing some yoga. On my break from work, and I flipped on, I was just like, well, it's been like a couple years, maybe I'll understand Ram Dass again. I turned one of his talks on, where he was just speaking about, just some random talk where he's like, what we do is we model reality, and we model it by concepts. And he was going into that whole thing. And through that understanding of how we model reality through concepts, shrunk everything that I knew down to individual concepts, like a giant fishbowl filled with bubbles, and I became outside of the fishbowl. And that's what brought me from that first level of being into the second level of being. And that second level held that first level, but the first level now was so small. It was like a tiny little pinprick in my entire beingness, and still is. That's still how I am, because there is some integration between my rational thinking mind and this spiritual realization. There is an integration, there is an understanding, and I think that, that cohesive working togetherness behind your beingness and the rational mind is what enlightenment is. And so when I talk about spiritual stuff, I'm talking from that second level. Like Ram Dass, he was talking about the second level, coming from the first level most of the time. Most of his life, that's what was going on. And because I didn't really understand or grasp that second level when I first heard Ram Dass, it just didn't work for me. I needed several more years in order to build up a certain level of understanding on my first level to be able to collapse it all down into a workable truth, of some sort of functional thing. So if you're listening to me right now and you don't really understand what I'm saying, then that's all right. Put me on the back burner. And if what I'm saying, if there's anything that you're interested in or you find it important, but you don't understand it, then just put me, just say, okay, that's there for now. That's always going to be there. That's sitting on the internet. You can come back to it. And maybe in a couple years, a couple days, weeks, whatever, just flip on just some random stuff that I'm talking about. See if any of it clicks. Just keep coming back. Because I think who I'm talking to is somebody who already has a vocabulary. Like, there is a way of using words and language to communicate the spiritual second level stuff. And when we're on the first level communicating, we're doing it piece by piece. We're trying to put some sort of picture together, and the picture's not quite clear because we're doing it piece by piece. And so a spiritual seeker is putting a puzzle piece together by accumulating knowledge and slowly building an understanding. they may not understand what a preacher says or what a spiritual guru is saying or teacher. But something inside of them is resonating with the words that are being spoken. Some sort of, oh yeah, that's how I see things. That's what I believe is true, even though you don't really understand it yet. There's something that is an attractor towards the words themselves. And so you use that as a beacon and you go right towards that. You keep following it. Whatever comes onto that path, you take it in. You try to investigate, understand. And then eventually, there's going to be someone like Ram Dass that comes along. You know, that was just the person who spoke certain words that I needed to hear at that time. Eventually that will happen. Doesn't even have to be words. Could just be a situation. And that will open the window of that you have. You have a window in your reality, and something will open that eventually. You'll go outside of reality and you'll look at reality. And you'll be able to really gain a full understanding of what that is. But for the most part, I am interested in expressing what that looks like after you get outside the window. Because there's not a lot of people who have that perception, unfortunately. Most people are caught and stuck in relative reality, the wonderful world that our physicists have given us. Most of our relative reality, most of that world that we're living in is a habitual world, a world of reaction. It's some push and pull that we are experiencing. And that push and pull is very dense and very serious. And the story behind it is that if you don't have the right push and pull, you're going to die. People are going to die. People, loved ones, awful suffering, misery. So you have to, there's a lot of emphasis on becoming important and good on this first level, this habitual level. And it becomes so serious that we start to get stressed out and even cause more suffering, unfortunately. And so that is why the second level is so important. And I just wanted to lay a little bit of the groundwork because I'm going to, I have been talking a lot about the second level stuff, a lot of big concepts, a lot of non-dual concepts, Buddhist, all this kind of whatever. And I just want a little bit more understanding. so that we're not all lost out here as I'm rambling. Anyway. Let's sit for a couple minutes.